I started journaling 9 years ago when I was at my lowest, in 2016 to be exact. And at the time, I was really depressed. I did not love myself, and I was hanging out with all the wrong people. But at the same time, during that time, I would say that the journaling practice, while it wasn't the only thing, I think it was one of the main things that has really helped me over the years become my own best friend. Journaling usually serves as a medium of communication for you to be able to have a conversation with yourself, because when during our lived experience do we have a chance to be alone with our thoughts? And I'm so happy to report that 9 years later, I have gone from surviving to living and now thriving. And I'd say journaling has been a big part of the life of intention and being mindful and changing my life so that now I am my absolute best friend. I absolutely love myself. Sometimes I wake up surprised with the types of relationships I currently have. They are so loving and supporting. And I'm very excited to share with you today some lessons I learned along the way and tips on how you can get started with journaling as well. Sometimes I mention in conversation that I happen to journal, and usually that ends up coming up with a couple of follow-up questions. The person that I'm talking to usually mentions that they were curious about journaling, that they actually bought a journal themselves, and then they just reported about their day, and then they just stopped journaling after that. And so they often ask me, what do I usually journal about? How often do I journal? Is there a specific schedule that I go by, and things like that? And so it's definitely not as complicated, but hopefully I can frame it in a way that can give you more ideas for your next journaling session. Now, what do you journal about? For me, I usually like to simplify it into 5 purposes. The first purpose is the first layer, which is to document or record. That's when you're kind of writing down a report of your day. The second purpose is to reflect or review. So you reflect about your day, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, how you can do better tomorrow, or what you can work on. And then the third purpose is to release, or as I like to call it, brain vomit. It's when you're feeling so overwhelmed in all of your thoughts or emotions, or you're really trying to process something that just happened to you, and the same thought is just swirling over and over in your head. At that point, you might as well just release it, because once you get it on paper, you will find that suddenly your brain is just more calm afterwards. You've literally dumped out the spiraling circular thoughts that are just going on repeat in your mind onto the paper. So that is a release or a brain vomit. The fourth purpose is to dream, to envision, or as some others like to say, to manifest. This is where you envision how your life wants to be by the end of this year, or in 5 years, or in 10 years, or even in general, what is the dream daily life you would love to be living? And then that brings us to the final purpose, which is to plan, to strategize. These are things like, okay, I have this goal or I have this vision, and let me plan, what do I need to do in order to get that? Where is the gap between where I am and where I want to be? And what can I work on right now? What can I work on today? And then slowly build on that to eventually get there. That is usually the 5 purposes. And later I'll be going over the exact type of questions that usually fall into one of these 5 different categories. The second question I often get is, how often do you journal, and do you have a schedule? So honestly, you can journal whenever the heck you want to. Me personally, I actually do not journal every day. I journal whenever I feel like it or whenever I need it. And sometimes actually in my journal, I like to even write down what time of the day I journal, because sometimes I'm compelled to write at 2 a.m. and other times I'm compelled to write while I'm sitting on an airplane to an exciting travel that I'm about to take, and maybe I just want to document that. Or maybe I'm just so confused about what my next steps are that I want to do in the next week. So then I sit down and I just start writing about it anywhere, as long as I have the book near me. Right now, my current booklets have been getting smaller and smaller for, easy to take around. But that also still doesn't answer the question that there are some people who want to develop the habit of journaling, because it's all fine and dandy if I say whenever, and then you put your journal down and you never pick it up for like another 2 years. That's fine. I have a friend who literally journals once every 2 years. She would like to do it more, but the fact that she's been consistently doing it at that cadence is quite impressive in its own way. In the beginning, I used to pressure myself thinking that I had to do it every day in order to get the most benefits or things like that, but that was just my perfectionism speaking at the time. When in fact, I usually like to use a frequency measurement method. So the way it works is, instead of having a specific pressure of like, I'm going to journal at 8 a.m. every day for a whole month, and you don't make that month, you feel bad about yourself. Like, why. It's not that deep, it's not that serious. But you would love to improve doing it more often. And so what I do is I journal, I write the date that I journaled, and then I journal again, and it's like 1 month later. That's fine. So my frequency right now is 1 month. In the beginning, it actually was once a month, but then I wanted to do it more often. So then eventually I just tried to remember to journal whenever I could. And that 1 month became maybe once every 2 weeks. And then it became 2 to 3 times a week. And then now it became a habit where I've done it often enough where I know, hey, if I have something going on and I want to get clarity in it, my first instinct is now to go to that journal and do that. And the way you do these frequencies is every time you're doing it more often, you just celebrate the fact like, hey, I see an improvement with how often I'm doing it. I'm going to celebrate the fact that like I literally went from writing my journal once a month and now I'm writing in it every week. Now I'm writing in it 2 to 3 times a week. So I highly suggest you experiment with this. I know some people do better blocking out times in their days and having it happen at a specific time of the day, like 8 a.m. every morning. During your morning routine, you bring out your journal, or even your evening bedtime routine, you have that next to your bed to write for a little bit before going to bed. Anything that works for you, do that. But definitely for the people like me where we're not as consistent but we get things done, then I recommend the frequency method, just celebrating the shortening frequency over time. That way you have your habit built and there's not too much pressure. Now, how do you start? Well, first off, you buy a journal. Any journal, particularly one that you find really cute and aesthetic, that really speaks to you so that you get really excited to write in it. From there, you're just gonna write in the corner the date. And at least in my case, I like to write the time since I do write in different times of the day, and I notice that my thoughts and feelings are quite different depending on the time of the day as well. But in general, you write the date in the corner and you can just start writing. What I also like to do is sometimes I like to write a word or jot down a general theme or thought that I had at the time. I can do this before or after the writing just so that if I'm flipping through the pages, I just have a quick theme note of what this giant blob of text was even about in the first place. Now here's the scary thing. A lot of people are faced with a blank page and they're like, what the heck do I write about?
Now let's see how it looks so far.
Well, we're going to be going that in a moment, but my favorite tip is to literally just start writing anything that comes to mind. And I'll just say some kind of gibberish thing like, the sun is shining today and there's a cup on my table. It's gibberish, but what happens is that it gets you flowing and starting with writing. And you will find that after the beginning gibberish, you will actually start coming out with the thoughts that originally compelled you to start writing in the first place. Like, oh, actually earlier today, this thing bothered me and blah, 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 blah. Now, questions on what do you write about? I have designed some prompts that you can start with using the 5 purposes that we talked about earlier today to help you get into the thought process of thinking. And oftentimes, a lot of good questions, I like to filter them through 1, the 5 purposes, or 2, also who, what, where, when, how, why. I just start the question like that first. If I'm documenting something, I might say, what happened today? When did it happen? If I'm reflecting, I might do something like, how did that make you feel? In reflecting, I can use be like, what made you smile? What's something that you're proud of that you did recently? Or what could you do better? How can you do it better? The third purpose of release, it's like what's something frustrating that you want to get off your chest. And the nice thing about journals is you can release it and no one will judge you for it. Isn't that amazing? And the other one is to dream or to envision. So it's like what I was asked earlier in the video. How do you imagine your dream life, your dream day-to-day life 5 years from now? And lastly, number 5, to plan. So how are we going to plan to get XYZ income, to get XYZ lifestyle? Or how can we improve this relationship? Maybe the plan to improve our relationship with our parents is to call them once a week on Sundays or things like that. And now a bonus topic of, does it have to be a journal? Do you really need a journal in order to get the benefits of self-reflection? Well, actually, journaling is just one medium of a way to communicate with yourself. Other ways that people have gone about doing this, and I've actually done this myself sometimes when I'm too lazy to write, is I actually take my phone and I record a voice memo just to myself. Be like, well, I was really mad, da 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 da, or like, I had this great thing that happened to me today, yada yada yada. And no one needs to read it. No one's ever going to go through your voice memos. Most of my voice memos are kind of weird, honestly. They're just random audios of, sometimes I hear a cool bird and I just collect that audio for what, I don't know. And the other one is some people like vlogging. You are videoing yourself and then afterwards you watch yourself over again and then you can reflect. So some people process better like that. I know I have one of my friends who has ADHD and she said she can't really take the time to sit down and write and read back what she wrote. So instead I told her, why not try doing voice memos? And what she likes to do, well, well, she asked me if she could just send me her voice memos, so as if she's talking to someone. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, as long as you don't mind, you know, what I'm listening to, because it is like a person's own personal thoughts. And so she'll just send me these random voice memos, and I'm like, cool. And I just give an emoji just to say that I saw it. I don't need to comment on it unless she's asking for it, because it's a personal thing. And I think that you should be able to speak out your thoughts without judgment. I think that's one of the nice things about journaling, is that it is your own space, your own bubble for you to get to know yourself, and you're not influenced by any other external factors. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any questions about journaling, please comment them down below and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and see you guys in the next video. Bye!